and it's something that I learn in some ways, or maybe is more intuitive in the script, but when I'm shooting it, it becomes much more deliberate. I'm much more aware of how the story is being told and what the rhythms are. With Francis, it's a lot of often sort of montage or quick little bursts of scenes, and then you hit a scene and it's a much longer. I started that a bit in Greenberg, and both of them were shot very differently they're shot differently from each other, but there were Margot and Squid, as we see in these clips. I mean, I was doing, with Squid, I wanted it to have, the idea was a handheld camera but held as steadily as possible, but that you'd feel a kind of handmade human hand in it, and that you were in this house, you were with these people, it had a kind of uneasiness maybe to it. Margot was kind of taking that even further, and the cutting of Margot was, I was lopping scenes off in the top and the end. It was like you were just propelled, and both those movies in different ways, I kept thinking in some ways, it was almost like they keep crashing into each other and it doesn't stop. And when it's over, you cut to black and you're done. Greenberg is much different. Greenberg is more, takes its time. I mean, the opening sequence is a credit sequence. I mean, even the titles, like just Squid and the Whale just says Squid and the Whale, then the movie starts. Margaret the Whale, then the movie starts, and all the credits are at the end. And Greenberg, I wanted to like play a good song and let you watch the credits and watch Greta drive and see Los Angeles and kind of be brought into the movie in a whole other way. And a lot of, and shot widescreen, it was really about the environment and the people in the environment. And Francis was kind of even an elaboration on that. It was really about, as Brian was saying, letting the actors inhabit the space. But that's what I've always done too, is I shot list before I go in, but then I kind of don't look at it again. I shot list with the DP, then I go to the set when we start shooting and don't look at it, let the actors explore the space, and then figure out how we're going to shoot it.
And what about you, Brian? I mean, we look at these famous sequences like the Odessa Steps, or even this scene from Carlito's Way, and we imagine, oh, it must be very elaborately storyboarded in advance, and then you stick to that. But is there more room for changing things on the spot when you're on the set?
It depends what kind of scene you're doing. If you're doing a sort of an emotional scene between two actors or three actors or whatever, again, it's like the boardroom scene in the shootout in Scarface. I had like 5 character actors, and the interesting thing about that is when we first started to shoot it, I first had there's a scene with Robert Loggia and Al, and they're talking across the table. And then we went back and then we were going to do the shootout in that same space. Well, if you remember, that was just sort of a table, and him on one, the Loggia on one side, and Al and Manny on the other. And we started to do the scene. Al suddenly started to, I could see he was very uncomfortable. You've got to watch your actors all the time, especially these ones that have they can feel any kind of emotion or temperature in the room. I could see something was bothering Al. So, needless to say, we had rehearsed these scenes to death, and still he was seemingly very uncomfortable. And then he looked at me and said, "This scene's not working. We've got to get Oliver down here. We want to work on the scene." So here I am, sitting around with a crew of 100 people on the soundstage at Universal. We're a couple of weeks behind schedule, and Al wants to rehearse. And I'm thinking, oh my God, oh God. So we go back, and I call up the producer. I say, look, Hal's having problems with this scene, and we'll shoot something else while I try to figure out what the problem is. So I went back and I was watching what was going on, with the rehearsal, and then I figured out, by watching Al move around, I could see that the room was too small. It was simply as simple as that. You know, he wanted to have that big table so he could move around it, you know, and sort of push himself around in the chair, you know, and have, you know, Sosa come toward him, Reloja come toward him. And what we actually did is, I said to Nando, the set designer, build it 4 times bigger. That's what we did. We went back and shot the scene, you know, 3 weeks later. It was this huge space, because we had all these character actors there, and they didn't have enough space to move around. And it seems so simple when I tell you now, but unless you've actually witnessed this stuff happening, it's quite something.
I want to